Hey, all of you out there in the Rich universe. Dwight here with I think it's going to be episode 2 of something that I didn't name in the beginning when I talked about the sea-wise giant, but I think we're going to call it Dwight's Bights. Well, frankly, I think it's just cute. I was preparing for an undisclosed trivia event that I participated in this Memorial Day weekend, and I was doing some research on forests. That was to be my topic, and I was going to do a few questions surrounding forests. And I was searching for something, and as often happens as we kind of get into the, let's just call it the Eat the Rich critique of kind of corporate media and the way that capitalism is portrayed in the media in quite fawning ways and quite ignorant ways, I think I could say, I came across something that blew my mind. Now, it wasn't a single article that I found to be distressing. It was two articles, when put next to each other, told a larger story that I think that I thought about you guys, and I was like, this is something that we need to bring some attention to. And so with your permission, I would like to bring some attention to it right now. To set this up, I'm going to explain something quickly which you might be familiar with, which is the Government Pension Fund of Norway. I won't get into it too deep, but long story short, Norway, maybe despite what we may think popularly of the country, is a petrostate in a way. I mean, they make an enormous amount of money based off of their oil exploration. So much so that they had decided in kind of democratic socialist fashion that, well, if we are extracting this amount of value out of our natural resources, then we are going to try to socialize those profits. It has over $1 trillion worth in assets, and as of May 2018, I'm just reading from Wikipedia here, as of May 2018, it was worth about 200 grand per Norwegian citizen. So that's, if you were to have any sort of kind of socialized benefit from natural resources, what a great idea, right? It is to say, unfortunately, that this is based around the burning of hydrocarbons. So that's just a little bit of background. Now let's go into the first article that I had read from this. It's from CNN, September 26th, 2019. And the headline is, Gabon, the African country of Gabon, receives $150 million to preserve its rainforest. Interesting. And it goes on to say, in an effort to fight climate change, the Central African Forest Initiative announced Sunday that Gabon will be paid $150 million in international funds to preserve its rainforest. Through its initiative, Norway will support Gabon with the funds to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and battle deforestation. The announcement was made at the Climate Action Summit in New York, where world leaders gathered to discuss how to reach net zero greenhouse gas emissions. The CAFI is a collaborative partnership between the UN Development Program, 6 Central African countries, Food and Culture Organization of the United Nations, and the World Bank, and a coalition of donors, including the United Kingdom, Norway, and South Korea. The partnership aims to support 6 Central African countries, Cameroon, Gabon, Republic of Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Central African Republic, and the Democratic Republic of Congo, to create investment frameworks to support conservation of their forest resources. According to the statement from CAFI, the historic 10-year deal with Gabon will see that the country maintains up to 98% of its rainforests. The $150 million agreement announced today between Gabon and Norway via the Central African Forest Initiative is historic in many ways. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, no, I'll read this. For the first time, an African country will be rewarded in a 10-year deal for both reducing its greenhouse gas emissions from deforestation and degradation and absorptions of carbon dioxide by natural forests. It goes on to say, blah, 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 how Norway is, has many nice natural forests and stuff like that, and that's true. And at the end of the article, CNN couldn't help but to get in this jab. But Gabon is not without its environmental challenges. In June, following a corruption scandal in which hundreds of containers of illegally logged Kavizingo wood went missing, the country's former forests minister was fired. Dwight, the country's new minister of Forests, Seas, Environment, and Climate Change, says raising the value of Gabonese rainforests is an important key improving the living standards of people in Gabon. So I'm like, okay. So on the face of it, Norway is giving poor little Gabon $150 million, saying, hey, stop this corruption. You can't handle your own rainforests. Let us take care of this. We're going to pay you to stop you from mistakenly killing us all because you're not doing the right thing with your carbon sink and blah, 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 blah. Okay, that was September 26th, 2019. October 7th, 2019. Only a few weeks later, a Bloomberg article, Norway's huge new oil project clashes with growing focus on climate. not freaking 3 weeks later. The timing of Norway's biggest oil project in decades is a bit awkward. Equinor ASA, which is the exploration company of Norway, the oil exploration company of Norway, kicked off its massive Johan Sverdrup field, a rare mega project in the aging North Sea. Aging, talking about the fact that the North Sea oil reserves have been, explored vigorously between the different interests in that area for the past, 50 years or something. And Bloomberg here is alluding to the questioning of how much oil reserves is still there. At a moment where the pressure on the oil industry and governments to act against the climate crisis has never been greater. The field is set to produce crude for 50 years. Well beyond the time where the world's greenhouse gas emissions should be net zero to avoid warming of more than 1.5 degrees centigrade. It is understandable that it could be viewed as a paradox in times like these, said economics professor Klaus Mohn, the rector of the University of Stavanger, the country's oil capital. But Norway has stubbornly maintained a separation between its oil policy on one side and climate policy on the other. Sverdrup, which is the name of the oil field, has already been a boon for Norway's offshore industry and now promises to deliver a big production boost for its owners and the country as a whole. Yet it comes the year after Equinor changed its name from Statoil to reflect the increased investments in renewable energy, and as a political debate about the post-oil era in Norway is accelerating. Equinor anticipated the apparent contradiction on its website, with the main banner reading, "We're celebrating the opening of Johan Sverdrup oil field, but what about the climate?" Jesus Christ. Equinor and Norway have long used Sverdrup as a prime example of why they should be the last to stop producing oil, even betting that barrels produced with lower emissions will become a competitive advantage in a world where higher prices on carbon pollution will reduce demand for crude. I don't want to stop too much here because I think you guys get what's going on, but I just have to stop here because they're just saying, we anticipate that the world as a whole, under a, capitalist system, regardless if it's state capitalism or private capitalism, will start to just create a market economy and hope that, we should be the last to stop producing crude because we're doing it on a lower carbon emissions per barrel of extraction. So they're saying, when we extract, it is less costly to the environment because we try to extract using some energy offset by their onshore hydropower. Who fucking cares? It doesn't you think Saudi Arabia is going to be like, we'll take a back seat now because we extract a lot of our oil using oil, and therefore we agree that as a world that we should kind of take a back seat first and let Norway continue. It's fucking cow-brained. Anyway, continuing to this, emissions from the production process account for just a fraction of the life cycle of a barrel of crude. Exactly. If all of Sverdrup's oil is burned, it could produce more than 1.1 billion tons of carbon dioxide, more than 20 times Norway's total annual emissions. They go on to say, Sverdrup's startup is a fantastic day for Equinor and state coffers. Economics professor Knut Einar Rosendahl said on Twitter, not such a fantastic day for the global climate gas emissions. Discovered in 2010 in an area that had been disregarded by most explorers, the site started production on Saturday and is set to reach 440,000 barrels a day by next summer. That means this coming summer, 2020. That represents a 33% addition to Norway's crude output in the first half of this year, a hike not seen since the 1980s. I think what I'm trying to point out here, and we don't have to read the rest of the article, yada, 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 hey, what are we going to do with all this money, Norway, hey, we're rich, blah, blah, blah. What I want to draw a comparison with here is, we know that any hydrocarbon burning for energy production is not good. We know empirically that we can power the world without using fossil fuels. We can make it work. The thing that bothered me the most about this was the difference in how the American corporate media was talking about these two things. I think it reflects a kind of white paternalism, European paternalism over Africa, because it's set up in the CNN article, of course. They always give background at the end of the article after, they kind of make the point and saying, blah, blah, blah. Gabon is this corrupt African country. They don't know any better. It's infantilizing. They don't know any better. This is what we're going to have to do. Good old Norway is thank goodness, they were even willing to put up $150 million just to stop them them to stop people in Gabon from deforesting their own natural resources. And yet, that same entity that is giving $150 million to the country of Gabon to stop them from utilizing their own natural resources, not saying that it's a good thing to deforest, but taking that agency away from them, which is just a different, I would argue, is a different form of economic colonization. Norway is simultaneously, willingly adding 1.1 billion tons of carbon dioxide into our atmosphere over the next, 50 years. And why? Why then? If they, in self-admittedly in this article, if they say, the onshore grid, Norway's onshore grid dominated by hydropower, then what are they doing this for? If not to just enrich the country? And how the corporate media is projecting it is one of white paternalism, saying, good old Norway is there to pick up the pieces. Yeah, then 2 weeks later, we'll start to worry about this stuff because it doesn't seem right. Even we self-admit that. This is just something that I saw and I couldn't ignore. And the first thing I thought was about you guys. I wanted to present it to you because I think it represents a completely morally bankrupt and directionless moral compass. How the globe treats its natural resources on a nearly racial basis. We can all agree that we need to eliminate greenhouse gas emissions. But what makes it okay for one country to do it and the other country not to do it? And I think it's kind of hard to ignore the colonizing lens through which these two articles are being written. If we are going to eliminate greenhouse gas emissions, we have to do it in what I would argue is an eco-socialist way, which is in a way that benefits the majority of people, and especially the least moneyed people on Earth first. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this in whatever way it is enjoyable, and we'll talk soon. Stay cool.